Tonight, new Suicide Squad shows us why it's so important to always do your stretches before even a quick little run. Batgirl learns the troubles of becoming internet famous, something I'm very familiar with, and Justice League United does not have 40 main characters. They have 38. What the hell is wrong with you, Jeff Lemire? All that and more tonight on the Not So New 52. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 176 of the Not So New 52. I am your host and nothing is happening this week. I might be the worst promoter of all time because I know at the beginning of the episode I should be like, oh man, you gotta listen to this week's episode. There's so much cool stuff going on. You definitely gotta listen to the end because that's where the coolest stuff is. But no, I'm not going to BS you. There's no events going on at all. And frankly, most every book this week feels kind of rushed and haphazard. They were all very fast reads. I don't know how better to explain it. It's kind of a crap week. I don't suggest skipping the week, mind you. There are things that happened. If you're keeping up with any of these comics, it's important to know what happens. But it's just kind of oh, and then this happens, and tune in next month. It's a singular event for almost every book. And then we just padded that out to 22 pages. So yeah, I'm happy I sold you on this, and that you're so engaged to now listen to the rest of the episode. So why don't you tell you the books that are coming out this week. This week, in no particular order, we have Batgirl, Grayson, Superman/Wonder Woman, Green Lantern Corps, Justice League United, World's Finest, New Suicide Squad, Constantine, Klarion, and then our 3 weekly books, Batman Eternal, World's End, and Future's End. So yeah, that's everything. But out of those books, I would say the best is Grayson. And even then, it's kind of it's good. It's not awful, but it's not I think the last issue of this book set an unfair precedence of this is really great, and then this one comes in, it's just all right, well, you tried. So yeah, I don't know how long this episode's going to be. I'm assuming close to 2 hours, either over or under. So get ready for the marathon, boys and girls. Batgirl number 38, written by Cameron Stewart and Brendan Fletcher, art by Babs Tarr. So, last issue, we had Barbara fighting against some sort of, I don't know, crazy social media, whatever, and she decided, hey, I'm going to take Batgirl onto social media. I'm gonna own my own accounts. And we see that it has gone remarkably well. Every time she stops a robbery, stops a mug or whatever, she takes a little selfie and posts it, and everyone's like, oh my god, Batgirl's awesome. And they're all asking for autographs and crazy stuff like that. And finally, one night at a bar, she's taking pictures with some fans of hers, and Black Canary comes up and just hey, Batgirl, let's have a chat. And they step aside real quick, and Black Canary basically tears her apart, saying this is not good. You are supposed you think that this is what people want? You're a celebrity, you're putting people in danger. Not to mention, do you think Batman's cool with all this? You're kind of using his name. And she's like, Batman doesn't own me. I'm my own person. And I'm having fun, okay? After everything I've went through in my life, don't you think I deserve to have some fun? And Black Canary's like, oh my god, you're a child. Grow up, man. And she's like, you know what? Fine, I will grow up. Get out of my apartment. Grab your stuff and move out. And she's like, all right, fine. Sounds good to me. So we then later on see Barbara going on a date with that Liam guy. I think he was introduced last issue. And apparently she just immediately starts dumping on Dinah, bailing out. Just oh yeah, my friend's upset with me. And I keep on giving her a chance. I keep on trying to do good things for her. And she just keeps throwing it in my face. And I've gone through so much stuff in my life. And then she realizes oh, wait a minute. It's our second date. I'm sorry. I shouldn't be dumping like this. And he's like, no, I'm happy to. And I'm glad that you, we managed to hook up on that Hook dating app. It was really fate that we found each other at all. It's crazy. And he mentioned something like, yeah, no, the app was really pushing it. It's like a over-concerned mom. And he's like, oh, wait, sorry, your mom. I forgot about that. And she's like, wait a minute, when did I tell you about my mom? And he's like, oh, like last time we went on the date. You mentioned that she disappeared from your life. I should have remembered. So they're about to go down in the subway when all of a sudden they see this social media influencer guy named Jordan Barbary, who apparently is just the worst. His father was like a bank thief that they never managed to actually prove he did anything. So now he's inherited all that money. And he just goes whining and dining with girls, clubbing and stuff like that. But he did end up causing car accidents that put people in like wheelchairs, and they have like severe physical injuries because of it. And Liam, being a cop, is like, man, I hate that guy. He's the worst. And it's all that stuff happening like that. Cops should be able to take him on. And now Batgirl's making everything worse. And Barbara's just like, I'm sorry, how is Batgirl making everything? Huh? And he's like, oh yeah, I totally believe in the anti-vigilante laws. And her going out there like a normal citizen doing police work like that, not only do we have to set these guys free like half the time because chain of evidence is just not there, but also as soon as you let regular citizens do that, everything becomes chaos. It's crazy. So Barbara's trying to argue for it briefly, but then he's just going off. He's just saying, like, I've worked for so long and someone in a costume undermines me. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm ranting. This is, some date I turned out to be. And she's like, no, you're good. Text you tomorrow? And he's like, yeah, totally. So they share a little kiss. She goes back inside her house. Turns out her roommate is up late working on the Hook dating app because there's a virus or something. It's whatever. But the roommate does mention, oh, hey, by the way, your roommate, Dinah, she got all of her stuff and left. Apparently she's crashing with some of her bandmates. And immediately Barbara's like, wait a minute, Dinah's in a band? So we then cut to her at the university. Her advisor comes in and wants Barbara's attention, but she's asleep because she stayed out late last night. And she's like, oh, what? She was on a date? Okay, Barbara, wake up. So at that point, he says that George, the head of the department, is coming back and he wants to go over Barbara's thesis, which, if you remember, was destroyed when her laptop was. So her and her roommate, coworker Nadima, go out to a bar and she's kind of just drinking her troubles away. And she's like, yeah, it was millions of lines of code. There's no way I could possibly do it in time. And Nadima's like, why didn't you back it up? And she's like, it involved my brain. I don't like putting my brain on the internet. That's the whole thing. And she decides to change the subject over to Jordan Barbary, to which Nadima's like, oh yeah, he's the worst. Someone should do something about him. To which Barbara gets a very determined look in her eye. We see that she goes over to Kadir and basically says, hey, I know you live. Don't worry about it. Let's go get this Jordan Barbary guy. And he's like, that doesn't really seem like your standard fare of criminal. You sure you should be like dipping your toes into that sort of like celebrity sphere? And that's something I forgot to mention earlier, was Barbara's one argument for why Batgirl is good is that everyone likes her, to which point Liam points out Jordan Barbary gets more likes on Instagram than people show up in elections. Is that how we judge a good person? So Barbara's like, yeah, no, we're taking this guy down. I want you to help me out in finding him. So they stalk his socials. They find out he's down at a club where there's a brand new band playing with a brand new singer. Who would have thought? And Barbara just immediately, as Batgirl gets into the club, sees that Dinah is singing up on stage for the band Ashes on Sunday. And we don't get much more of that because Jordan Barbary's me like, hey, Batgirl, I think you show up here eventually. And he's like, come with me. You were going to jail. And he's like, well, for what? I didn't do anything yet. And she's like, you're going to go drinking and driving just like you always do. And he's like, yeah, you want to race? Let's go. So he rushes out to the car. Batgirl tries to stop him, but he hops in the car, peels out. And so now it's basically a race where Jordan's just going crazy. He's like spinning down alleyways. He's putting people at risk. Until finally we reach a crosswalk where there's a man crossing with his dog. Barbara has to throw a bomb underneath the car to explode it upwards just enough that it dodges the man and the dog, and then it comes back down. Police are giving chase, and Barbara ends up throwing in a goo bomb into the car so that way it can crash into a building and he'll remain alive, no injuries. But as it crashes into the building, we see that it's Liam. He's the arresting officer, and he's like, put your hands up, Batgirl. And she's like, I'm on your side. And he's like, no, you ain't. You're getting arrested. So They have a brief little standoff before she ends up throwing a smoke bomb and she gets away. And we see Liam is complaining about it the next day, saying, like, Batgirl, if she, had just called the cops, told us that Jordan was there, everything would have been fine. Instead, that building that she crashed into, that was an old, 50s diner. And that, it was rent controlled. There was no way that they're going to be able to rebuild now in current, gentrified Burnside. They're going out of business. It's all Batgirl's fault. And so Liam then says something about, hey, yeah, look, I'm sorry I'm ranting. You told me about all that trouble with your mom and your brother. I shouldn't be doing that. I'm going to go to the bathroom. And Batgirl's like, wait, I never told you about my brother. What is all this? But she hops on the social media, sees that everyone's turned against her. Batgirl's no longer in public favor. And on Liam's phone, Barbara pops up saying Barbara's calling. And she's like, wait a minute, I'm not calling. So she answers the phone. And on the other side, it's a voice that says, hey Liam, it's me. I've got so many secrets to tell you. So what could those secrets be? Who's on the other side of the phone? Probably the same person that's been pretending to be Batgirl the entire time. So yeah, it's a very fast read. I like the moral implications of it. I like the idea of, you can't, the vigilante argument, should vigilantes break the law in order to arrest people? But throwing in this extra twist of popularity, of it, it makes it okay if people like you, but if people don't like you, then it's not okay. There's something interesting there that can be explored. I'm not sure it will be. It feels like this series has mostly just been, okay, we're examining this for one issue, then this for one issue, and it's got an overarching theme, but the vigilantism seems like it's going to take a back seat. So, all in all, I probably would say this one is a 7.5. It's good. It's just not quite up to that great standard yet, but it's constantly been a book that's had a good writing staff behind it, so I'm looking forward to more. Grayson number 6, written by Tim Seeley and Tom King, art by Mikel, Janin. So last issue was the annual, which was just a whole thing about Ireland that really doesn't tie much into anything. This issue picks up with the going around with the body parts stuff, and we see that over in the Yellow Sea on some random island, Helena and Grayson are going to find a group called AWOL, which is a collection of random escapees from criminal organizations who have all made a new criminal organization, and they stole the brain. So Grayson is talking about how this area looks fantastic. It's a whole sightseeing place. They should just go legit and sell tourism stuff. And he says that it's great for beaches, swimming, or fishing. And then all of a sudden, despite being on the side of a mountain, they're attacked by a giant killer whale, which has been altered with nanocytes to have giant spider legs. It's horrifying. But it turns out that this island, if you happen to be following this from the beginning of New 52, is the island of the Blackhawks. And at the end of that, the island was destroyed because of a bunch of nanocytes. So this orca has now taken on some nanocytes, has evolved via machines, and is now able to walk on land, which is horrifying. So they shoot it back down into the ocean. And Helena's like, okay, you made like 3 Free Willy puns in there. Could you just stop with the pop culture things and help me focus on these guys? And we see Grayson does buckle down a little bit because he doesn't want to have to lose somebody else. But as they come across the facility, it's too late and there's been a massive fight here. So tons of people are dead. And as they look their way through, it's like, yeah, this wasn't done by nanocytes. This was done by people. This is regular fighting styles. As they are trying to figure out what happened, Grayson gets his foot grabbed by one of them. So they unpry the foot, pull this guy up. He's one of the last few still alive. And it's like, all right, we'll move all the bodies. We'll figure out what to do. Right now, let me call the director, let him know what's up. And we see that watching off to the side, hidden behind some sort of veil, is Midnighter. And he's like, I may not be able to see the faces of these spiral agents, but I recognize that ass anywhere. That's Dick Grayson. So we call over to the director, and director's like, okay, look, thanks for the report. Do whatever you got to do. Just get to the interrogation and see if you can figure out where the brain actually went to. But it's implied that it's left with this group called the Fist of Cain, mainly because all these people's fists have the word Cain on it. So she starts up an interrogation as Dick Grayson's just kind of keeping lookout. We cut back over to Spiral HQ real quick with the Director Minos, and we see this young woman walk in. I forget her name. She comes in and then immediately just turns around, forgetting what she was there for. And Minos is talking to somebody on comms saying like, hey, sorry, I was distracted. I should have secured this place better. And the person on comms is like, oh, it's no big deal. We are imperceptible. We cannot be remembered except by the director of Spiral himself. And we see he's talking to 3 people all holding hands and legs together in a strange spiral pattern. And they say, we are spider, we are wisdom, we are kindness, and like they do this whole crazy ass thing. They seem ethereal, and they basically tell Mr. Minos, hey, you got a lot of pain up in you. We can take that away. We can remove the memories that are causing pain. That's our gift to you if you want. And he's like, oh, no, thanks, but I'm cool with it. And he admits to himself, seemingly after they've left, that he's given up his name and his face. His pain is the only reason he has left to continue on with this. So as Grayson is keeping look around the grounds as Helena starts beginning her interrogation, which basically is just a whole bunch of gaslighting of like, hey, remember, you and I grew up together. I was that cute girl you always liked. Why don't you tell me about some stuff about what's been going on? Grayson gets grabbed by Midnighter, pulled through the little facade of not being noticed, and teleports through a gate, which is Stormwatch's way of getting to different places. But this place brings him to the God Garden, which is Midnighter's base of operations. And he explains to Grayson, yeah, this is for all the monsters, all the things that man has created that like ought to have never existed. We bring it here to the God Garden in order to live in peace. And so he starts beating the crap out of Midnighter, and Grayson's like, hey man, I'm on a mission, I don't have time for this. And Midnighter's like, yeah, so do I, except my mission is to keep this stuff out of the hands of people like Spiral, because you guys are awful, you guys are horrible. So he tells Grayson like, hey, remember, I know who you are now. Even if I can't see your face, I studied up on you. I watched all the videos of Nightwing, the Flying Graysons, all that stuff. Dick Grayson, I know you. I know how you fight. I can hum along to your jazz now. And he starts beating the crap out of Dick. And Dick's like, you may know all of Nightwing's moves, but how about Robin? And so he pulls out a bunch of moves back from when he was Robin, saying that it's less of jazz, more of punk rock. And he gets the upper hand on Midnighter. But it turns out that Midnighter was already running something in the background. The God Garden does so well with biological stuff. It was able to, without Grayson noticing, remove his Hypnos implant and implant it into Midnighter. So we see that the interrogation is going well with Helena and this one dude until finally she sees whatever she needed to see. It's a whole chaotic scene. She calls up Director. She's in like a post-traumatic thing of like after the interrogation because their minds were melding or whatever. But she comes to and she realizes, okay, these guys are going to take the brain, load it up with a buttload of rage and anger, and then use it as a psychic attack at a nearby peace rally. And it will cause everybody in that vicinity to go crazy and kill each other because the Fist of Cain believes peace is stupid, everyone's just animalistic and murderous. So we then cut back over to Grayson, who is saying, or Midnighter's beating him up, telling him like, hey, I got your Hypnos. I'm going to reverse engineer it using the God Garden. Then I'm going to go and follow your communications back to your HQ. I'm going to take out all of Spiral's base. I'm going to grab all the body parts you guys have taken. I'm going to throw them into a black hole at the edge of the universe. And then I'm going to take down every one of Spiral's agents one by one, beginning with your partner, Matron, right? And as he's about to like land the killing blow on Dick, he's like, any last words? He says, yeah, Tsuchigumo, which is the kill phrase that we saw Helena use at the beginning of the series, that manages to take out the Hypnos implant. And Dick's like, it took me a while to find the word she used, but I remembered it. I got it now, and I did some research, and it turns out that it's this word for a mythical spider being. It also means spy in some translations. So he goes on this whole thing of like, yeah, you know Dick Grayson and all that, but you don't understand that I've become so much more. A Tsuchigomo, I've changed, but I'm always Dick Grayson. And so he ends up knocking out Midnighter, and popping up behind her comes the head of the garden, the mother of it all. And I don't know if she actually has a name, but regardless, she's like, hey, Dick, sorry about him. He gets a little bit out of hand. I probably should stop him sometime, but, you know, I feel bad for him. Anyway, come walk with me. And he's like, listen, lady, I got a mission I got to get back to. Could you just send me back there? And she's like, look, I know all about your mission. All of the Paragon things, these weapons, these body parts, they all came down to Earth in order to destroy me. And she says, even now, the Fist of Cain is going to murder hundreds of people. And Dick's like, okay, even more reason why I gotta go. And she's like, no, I'm the gardener. You must stay with me in order to save the garden. And she starts fizzling away as we see the God Garden as a space station hovering around the Earth. So, yeah, I mean, I enjoy it. I think I think the art's always fantastic. Mikel Janin really just nails, like, the pacing and the way things look. Even the crazier moments, so, like, the interrogation, this mental interrogation scene just looks great. And it's starting to explain a little bit more about the director as well. So interested in that. So overall, great issue. Loving it. I think this one, the other ones have been so tight because it's all been just that issue and then it's done. This one's the first one that's directly saying, okay, next issue we'll find out more. So it's not quite as tight in that way, but it is still equally intriguing. I think I'm going to end up with this one being a 7.5, just ever so shy of the 8, but I think that if it pays off in a really interesting way next issue, I'm willing to bounce it up to that 8 for it. So looking forward to it. Superman Wonder Woman number 15, written by Peter J. Tomasi, art by Ed Beans and Doug Mahnke. So last issue we got the big reveal that whatever his name was, Lightning whatever, ended up being Magog from Kingdom Come. Luckily, it's not the same Magog. So we open up this issue with a 5 weeks ago flashback. And we see this kid is walking. He seems to be homeless to some extent. And he's walking with this older woman who he's just saying, like, I want it. I want what was promised. I'm so pissed off. And she's like, I know you're pissed off. You want revenge against the people who hurt you. And that is understandable. And he's like, I want to hurt them bad for what they did. And it's important to note, this is a kid. This kid's like 10. And he's like, it was 5 years ago today. Sky opened up. Demons came out. And Superman and Wonder Woman fought all those demons in Metropolis or whatever. But the big part being, why did they fight in Metropolis? Why didn't they lead them somewhere else? Because of that, my mom, my dad, my sister, some of my friends, all of them died in the attack. So I blame Superman and Wonder Woman for that. And the old lady's like, okay, well, you have a responsibility to stop their self-absorbed tendencies, Mr. David Reed. I'm going to give you power, and it will help make up for all the stuff you went through. And so she pulls out a magic stone, and I can't tell if the stone like directly teleports him or just changes the world around him, but regardless, all of a sudden we're in Greek pantheon sort of setting, and he is in some sort of pain as we see that this is actually Circe saying like, oh, I've run all these experiments of transmutational elements, but finally I've managed to do something. And I'm going to use you, David Reed, in order to take these powers to where we both want to attack. Screw Wonder Woman, right? And yeah, if you want Superman too, fine, whatever. But mostly Wonder Woman. So Circe says your mind will be erased, but your soul will remember your rage, as he is transformed into this hyper being. And we see now he's huge. He's Magog. He's got Superman and Wonder Woman. He's like just hold over his shoulders and just like, cool, I'm gonna throw him off this cliff. And he's doing the whole thing of just saying like, oh, this is my destiny. I must save the world from Wonder Woman and Superman. And he throws Superman off into the water. He crashes down, and he's like, all right, now time for Wonder Woman. But of course, Wonder Woman's on her feet, got the lasso of truth wrapped around his head, and just says like, oh, I knew something wasn't right about you to start with. I can taste the magic on you now. And so she throws him around a little bit, starts throwing punches, being like, you know what? I could say I wonder who you are, but right now I don't give a damn. I just want to beat you up. He pulls out his trident, shoots it at her face, just being like, I don't need magic to tell me that you're lying. You want to find out all of our secrets. So he blasts her just over and over again as he shoots her closer and closer to the cliff. And as he says like, oh, you don't want to care about who I am, let me show you why I am. He blasts her over the edge, and we see that she grabs on at the last second so she doesn't fall the whole way into the water. But then she turns around and says like, okay, I kind of need to go save my boyfriend. So she loops down, and we see Magog is now hearing voices in his head being like, yes, I agree. Victory here is meaningless. I need to show everybody how their heroes have failed them. So he looks over at a nearby bridge as Wonder Woman and Superman come out of the water. She's like, you're still bleeding, man. That's magic that's caused this. You sure you're going to be good? And he's like, yeah, I just need some sunlight. I'm good. And so he's scanning the area. He's looking around with his supervision. He does see Magog over on the nearby bridge. And they're like, Magog's from the Bible, right? Is he like an Old Testament thing? And it's just like, I mean, yes, but like clearly he isn't. He's not nearly that old. And it's like, no, this is magic. Wonder Woman says, look, I need you to give me room to destroy this monster. You can't come up to him head to head. He will hurt you too badly. And Superman's like, I've been hurt a lot worse. And she's like, no, look, I am the god of war. This is exactly my purview. You need to go do your job and be savior of the people, okay? So as they are flying towards the bridge, Magog is picking up cars and just throwing them off, saying like, hey, guys, Superman and Wonder Woman are not going to catch you. They suck. And so he throws the cars, and the kids inside the car are just like, don't worry, Superman and Wonder Woman are right there. They'll catch us. And Wonder Woman just zooms on by straight to Magog, and Superman catches both the cars like, hey, what are you doing? And she's like, I trust and I have faith that you are going to be behind me doing what you need to do. And he's like, okay, well, you could let me know that. So Wonder Woman goes in, immediately starts the fight as Superman's clearing people off the bridge as best he can. And Wonder Woman's like, you couldn't have pissed two worse people. You couldn't have chosen two worse people to piss off. And he's like, oh yeah, that's so, let's see it. And he throws a punch at Wonder Woman, to which Superman flies in and just lands on his face, just straight up plows through him. And Magog's like, okay, well, I see you're still wounded from our last meeting. Let me just stab that a few more times. So Superman's now down on his back. Wonder Woman's got him, and Magog's like, maybe your girlfriend can come and save you. I mean, you can't save everyone, right? Trust me, I know that much. So he cuts through some of the wires on the suspension bridge. Superman goes up to hold them together. So now he's focused on doing that. He can't do anything else. Wonder Woman comes in, readies more for the fight, and Superman's like, all right, trust and faith. I got this. I believe in her. And as Wonder Woman just starts laying down the smackdown as much as possible, Magog's like, yes, finally, I remember it all. I remember just how little you care. And so he picks up this random woman and says, I'm afraid I need to show the sheep exactly what kind of wolf you are. And he throws this woman off the bridge. Wonder Woman's ready to go jump after her, when all of a sudden she's picked up and saved by a literal demon. And then a voice calls out saying like, oh, who was that you're going to save? Diana? Who was that? This poor woman who depended on you for help? The last thing she needs is your kind of help. And we see Cersei comes in with an entire demon horde saying like, okay, Magog, which of the heroes needs to die first? So it seems to me that the game plan here was Magog was going to kill a bunch of people to show that Superman and Wonder Woman couldn't save everybody, which would rock people's faith in them or whatever, and then kill them. What Cersei's plan here is, though, of saving someone that Magog was just about to kill, I'm not sure yet. It seems like she's trying to come in and say, like, oh, but you can trust me instead, which doesn't then square away with, and then I'm going to kill Superman or Wonder Woman. Like, I don't know. I like the Magog stuff. I think it's interesting to introduce this character on this Earth instead of, like, alternate world, but I'm still just not quite sure what the overarching plan is. I get Cersei hates Wonder Woman. Fine, sure, whatever. Seems like she's been personally slighted by her somehow. I think we just need that backstory to make the plan make more sense. Beyond that, it's a fine enough issue. Very quick read. I'd say 7. It's like it's a bit too fast of a read to really give it higher than that. It doesn't really have any major depth to it, but it's a solid middle issue. It's just a lot of fighting for the most part, but it looks great. Green Lantern Corps number 38, written by Van Jensen, art by Bernard Chang. So after Godhead is done, the whole event is wrapped up. We go back to Mogo, who has been revived, and Jon Stewart's just watching the sunset over Mogo. And Mogo's like, I never quite understood what sunset means, because, like, I always see the sun. And he's like, don't worry about it. I'm just enjoying myself after everything that the Corps has been through, pretty much nonstop. It's good to have a symbol of hope here. And we see the Guardians approach Jon Stewart, and they were like, that's the spirit. Hey, over in the main Green Lantern book, we told Hal Jordan to take a little break as we figure out what to do with him, but we still need a commanding officer, and we want you to do it, John. And he's like, you didn't choose me before. Why'd you choose me now? And they're like, well, to be honest, we thought you'd be a great leader, except we didn't know if you could feel properly, but that's wrapped up now. We trust in you. So, yeah, we want you to be the leader. And he's like, look, I appreciate it, truly, but this entire run was predicated on the idea that I was going to be training rookies. And, like, I haven't even looked at them in weeks. So I'm going to go take care of that real quick. And we cut over to all the Green Lantern recruits who are being trained by Kilowog. And Kilowog's just basically like, look, you guys showed up and you were nothing, and then you had literally war after war thrown at you, and you guys have managed to stick through it all. So I say that's training enough. Welcome to the Green Lantern Corps. And they all say the oath. John comes in, congratulates them. And as they are being congratulated, a ship comes down, and we see that it is a Xeroxian ship, which one of the recruits is from Xerox. It is the female one. I think their whole thing is based on, like, intelligence. I don't know. Regardless, two of her species step off the ship, and they're just like, oh, hey, it's been so long. And I gotta say, there's a panel on here that I'm pretty sure all of the speech bubbles are pointing to the wrong people. Like, they switched them, because it makes no sense to me. I sat on it for like 5 minutes trying to code it. And it makes sense if it was flipped, but not the way it was presented. But anyway, they say, oh, hey, we heard that one of you are kind of been taken by Green Lanterns. What are you doing here? And he's just like, oh, our planet has fallen into criminals. It's all horrible. It's called the Shadow Market, and it's just violence and vice, and it's awful. And we wanted to come and try to get the Green Lanterns to come in and help. You're our only hope. And so the Xeroxian Lantern is just like, hey, please let me go save my planet. And the Guardians are like, well, we're stretched pretty thin, but, like, this is exactly what our job is. So yeah, go for it. Jon Stewart, you're in charge of this mission. Do what you got to do. And I think it's Arisia, who comes in and is just like, hey, you're still holding on to that Star Sapphire ring. Why are you doing that? And he's like, oh, this is one hell of a weapon. I'm not giving it up yet. And so then they all fly off to Xerox. I'm going to be honest with you, these 2 pages are like the worst of this book by far. It's pacing-wise, it's awful. The way it just feels like it was rushed, you know? Anyway, we cut over to Xerox, and we see, like, a little kid walking home, and he's approached by what is essentially a drug dealer, just being like, hey, man, I'll give you a taste on the cheap, you know, what's up? And the kid keeps walking. He's stopped by his grandmother, who walks him the rest of the way home. And as this guy retreats down an alley, he's approached by the Green Lantern Corps, who immediately start beating him up. And he's like, look, I'll tell you everything I know. I'm way low down on the ladder. My top-uppest person is called Ocula, and she runs the whole market. I'll tell you where she's at, but please don't mention my name. So we go to this Ocula person who's chewing out one of the middle-rung guys for not keeping better stock of his stock. Apparently some of it's been going missing, and he blames his own dealers, but Ocula's like, well, if they don't fear you, then why should I care to have you around at all? And as he's pleading for his life, windows all crash open, and in comes the Green Lantern Corps, led by the Xeroxian one, who's like, hey, get the hell off my planet. And she's like, oh, you know, I haven't met a single member of your race that is not a horrible, awful person, so you must be a delicate. What were you, a thief? And she's like, yeah, I did some stuff, but I did it all for my family. And Ocula's like, oh, family, cool, I'm gonna go pay them a visit once we're done here. So immediately Jon Stewart binds them all up in a Green Lantern construct, just being like, look, tell us everything you know about the Shadow Market, and we won't throw you into a cell on Mogo. And then all of a sudden these guys, their jaws open up into huge orbs that end up being their entire heads, which give off some weird purple energy. Druk jumps in and he's like, I'm gonna bash it with my axe. And John's like, hey, we don't know what this energy is, but he does it anyway, which then seemingly infects him with the purple energy or something. We get the smallest recruit, the one who's mute, does this whole huge explosion of sound via construct, blows everyone out through some windows. And so the Green Lantern Corps manages to get all of these people bound up, taken care of. But we do see that Ocula, who is being held in front of a crowd that is gathered, says like, oh, have you not considered that these people don't want the freedom that you want? You know, they want to know what happens when darkness falls. And that seems to be the trigger word, where all of the race just goes, darkness falls, darkness falls. And Xeroxian Lantern's just like, guys, seriously, what are you doing? We're here to help. And they're like, darkness falls. So they start swarming the lanterns. Everyone has to retreat. They fly up into the sky and leave Oculus behind. It's just like, oh, well, they can run, but they'll see soon enough. Then we go over to a plot that I genuinely forgot was happening. If you happen to remember, Von Daggle, Hunger Dog, and some other random lantern were all on the look for Von Daggle's old partner. And so they've arrived at a planet called Ungara, and they say, all right, this is it. This is the place where we've been able to track your thing to. It also turns out to be the home of the legendary Abin Sur, but the planet is like dead. There's nothing there. But this is definitely where the trail is led to. So they all go down, and it's like, there's something in the air. It smells like death. And it's Hunger Dog says, wait a minute, my senses have been scrambled. This only ever happens when magic's involved. And all of a sudden, this demon-looking creature busts out of some rock, goes to attack them. They knock it out easily, straight up killing it. And it's just like, okay, but like, it smells like it's been dead for ever, like dead for years. This is messed up. I don't know what's happening here. And so Von Daggle's like, well, you've tracked to this planet. That's all I needed. Hunger Dog, you've fulfilled your obligation. The other lantern here will get you out of here. Peace. And so they teleport out, and now it's just Von Daggle, who transforms to look like one of these demons in order to blend in as he explores the planet. So finally we get the little kid and the grandma who are sitting in a bedroom, and there's a knock at the window. It's like, we're keeping those doors bolted. People are crazy out there. The kid's like, but that came from the window. Mind you, they're really high up, so there's no way that it could be at the window. And as they open it up, they see, oh, it's the mother. This is her kid and her mother that are all bolted up in here. So they're like, hey, we saw a broadcast that said Green Lanterns were evil. It's like, yeah, no, that was like 3 arcs ago, Mom. Don't worry about it. We're the heroes now. And so she comes in, she gives her kid a hug, saying that she's the good guys. And then they say, hey, look, we're going to get rid of all the criminals. You'll have nothing to be afraid of. And he's like, I'm not afraid of the criminals. I'm afraid of the monsters. And it's just like, oh, they're not monsters. You know, there's just something weird going on here. And the kid's like, no, Mom, there really are monsters. And they hide in the shadows, but I can hear them. And we get to zoom out from outside the window and see these weird little dog crab looking things that are climbing up the walls and are all right outside the bedroom door. So I gotta be honest, this wasn't really that great of an issue. Look, between reintroducing the Von Daggle Hunger Dog thing, which, like, fine, great, I'm glad that you, like, got back to that. That was definitely a dangling plot thread that did not get resolved, but, like, you gotta give me a little bit more of a reminder as to what the hell was happening. Like, they just immediately leapt into it, and I swear it was one of those things where, like, speech bubbles were not attributed properly, because I couldn't figure out what was going on for the first, like, 3 panels. It just wasn't making sense to me. And then, like I said before, there are 2 pages that the pacing was all wrong. It just felt rushed. This just didn't feel like a very good issue. I don't know what it was. Maybe, if I'm being honest, if I had to guess, they were told they're getting canceled at issue 40, and they wanted to wrap up as much as they could here. And they just had to sprint through it as best they could. I think that's far and away going to be the most likely explanation, but it's just a bit disappointing because it really, really shows that it's not as well paced as the rest of this story has been throughout. So yeah, I think I'm going to give this one probably just a 6. It's just really lacking for me, and I hope that it gets better, but not holding my breath. Justice League United number 8, written by Jeff Lemire, art by Neil Edwards. So last issue, everyone was converging on the big space hole, and then they were interrupted by evil robot Hawkman. So when I say everybody, I mean, of course, the Legion of Superheroes were involved in that. And we cut to the future, where the Legion of Superheroes, specifically Dream Girl, is saying, you know, this all started with a dream. The Legion of Superheroes, it was a guy named R.J. Brand who wanted to basically do Justice League, but like kids and all the different alien planets and stuff like that. And so we got Cosmic Boy and Lightning Lad and Saturn Girl, and the Legion of Superheroes was born, and we did all these fantastic things, and we grew, and we got so many more people involved. It was all such a wonderful dream, but now it ends with a nightmare. And we see she's hovering over the rubble that is a whole bunch of dead Legionnaires. And like, God bless them, they do the thing where they show all their heads and then names underneath it, but like, God bless them, there's 19 of them and I'm not going to read them all. So we see Starboy is like, Dream Girl, snap out of it, they're here, we gotta go. The Infinity Raids have managed to reach Earth, and we see all across the Earth, the Legionnaires are evacuating people, trying to protect cities and doing whatever they can to save the world until Brainiac 5 does what he needs to do back in the past. And at that point, it's just like, wait a minute, hold on, we have to stay here and like do this, because one of them is saying, look, we gotta go back to the past and help them out back there, because clearly it didn't work, and that's why we're dealing with it now. And it's Cosmic Lad who's like, no, we can't put all of our eggs in one basket. We were very clear about this. And Dream Girl's just like, you guys elected me leader while Brainiac 5 is gone. That's what we're doing. It's my call. Everyone, do what you gotta do. We're going to the past, because Infinitus is literally there up in the sky. So they all head to the Time Institute. They plug in the coordinates. One guy's just like, everything's changing so rapidly. Brainiac 5's doing his stuff that's leaving things in flux. And she's like, just aim for the middle of the flux. That's exactly where we need to be. So they all hop in, and Lightning Lad's like, are you sure, man? It's just like, hey, we've done literally all we can do here. We got to go back and help out. Long live the Legion. So they activate the time bubble. And then we got back to the past, where the ship holding Ultra and Bith is making its way towards the big space hole, and everyone's running in after it as fast as they can, but of course Robo Hawkman gets in the way. We then see, as he's about to attack, the Legion comes out, the whole rest of them, and they just run interference. They're ready to go. So giving time for Supergirl and Martian Manhunter to get up to the ship, where Martian Manhunter once again tries to telepathically bond with Ultra, and Ultra's like, sorry, dude, I just really want to see what's on the other side of that hole. And Bith's like, haha, you're too late, Martian Manhunter. So Bith does something to reach into Ultra's mind. Martian Manhunter has like, a psychic attack or whatever. And he's like, no, it's too late. I couldn't stop them. And Supergirl's just like, screw that. It's never too late. And so she busts in, going as fast as she can, chasing after the ship. Martian Manhunter tells her, no, stop, you can't. And she ends up going through the portal along with the ship. And Brainiac 5 is watching the readings, just being like, oh my god, she failed, it didn't work. Things are going crazy up there. Time and space are folding in on themselves. It's collapsing into a singularity. I don't know what's happening. And everyone's just watching this happen. It all swirls together into a big blinding green light, or blue light. And Green Arrow says, oh my god. To which Brainiac 5 says, oh, it's not God, Green Arrow. It's Infinitus. Dun, dun, dun. All right, so you should be able to tell by how fast I recap that. This book is full of big panels with no text. It is 100% just art, and I'm going to go ahead and say padding. Look, you send back a Legion of Superheroes team. You get them back there. Okay, we've got the Justice League United and the Legion of Superheroes team. Okay, I could deal with that. Then you introduce the Legion Lost. That's a bit much. That's a tiny bit too much there, buddy. You got like 17 people running around. Then you throw in the rest of the goddamn Legion. Son of a bitch, what are you doing? You know what? It's reached the point though where I am comfortable with knowing that none of them are important. Like, the only thing that this book could do wrong is by spending the entire next issue telling me specifically how all of these other Legionnaires are going to be directly helpful rather than just saying, and then the horde of heroes that are there all did the things they needed to do. The moment you start getting specific with it is the moment I'm losing interest. Also, like, again, it's just an issue of this threat is too much. It's literally all of time and space are at risk here. This is the B-Team Justice League book. I don't care if you want to say it's the Cosmic Group. I don't care if you want to say whatever it is. They got the Canadian leaf in their logo. This is the B-Team book, okay? Cosmic time and space threats, 'tis not. So yeah, it just feels like there's a bit of an identity crisis going on, and I don't quite know where the book is trying to end up here. So I think what all in all I'm going to come down on is I'd like this arc to end. And I'd like to see what comes next, because I like Jeff Lemire as a writer. I think he's very good. This is just not one of his strongest issues. So I'm going to say 6 for this. It's just not great. Art is still good. I do like the art, and like pacing-wise, it's fine. It's just too much going on. It's way too much. So 6. World's Finest number 30, written by Paul Levitz, art by Jed Dougherty. So we've been continuing on with Red Tornado, giving the last stories of all this stuff that happened before Earth 2, the book, happened. So we open up with Gotham City a few years ago, and we see Catwoman and her daughter Helena, now taking on the Robin outfit, are down at the docks, and they are here to investigate some human trafficking stuff going on. So a security guard goes by in a Segway. The Catwoman swoops in, knocks him out, while Robin takes over the Segway, and he's like, "Look, Mom, I got a wheelie." And she's like, "Yeah, great, awesome. We're kind of here for his phone, though, to see if he's got anything in there." And she finds a container that they got a tip about, NBR 523, and so they hop on the dock and go to exactly where it's located at. And she's like, "Hey, Mom, that's kind of like a really specific tip. How did you get something like that?" And she's like, "Oh, plenty of people in this trade have regrets after a while, and they're willing to give very specific information because of that." So they come across it, and as they do, they open it up, and Robin just rushes inside, to which Catwoman's like, "Careful," and then all of a sudden the floor falls out beneath them, and it's just a slide that they have no control over. So we then cut over to Sloan, Terry Sloan, who's sitting and having a tea with, as far as I could tell, his butler named Adarash. And he's just like, "Oh, Mr. Sloan, and you have so much wisdom." And Sloan's just like, "Oh, please, I don't believe in any of that smartest man in the world stuff, even if it's true." So he's got this whole thing going on, but mainly he is keeping an eye on a camera that's pointed at a spaceship that is out in space. And he says, "Oh, it's for long since I have watched this, but now I will get my secret weapon." So then over in some sort of secret location, we see that Lois and Clark are all cuddled up, getting smoochy on the couch, and Clark's like, "Lois, Kara's still around here. She's over in the next room." And then Kara just pops in with some popcorn, just being like, "Hey, I'm right here. Don't stop on my account." And Lois is like, "Maybe don't sneak up on us like that." And she's like, "What, should I wear a cowbell?" So we then go back to the docks, and we see that because Catwoman was in a little bit of a mess, Lois pontificates, "Batman is a patient man. He'll sit and wait for a crime to play out for like God knows how long, and finally pounce when it's right and ready to do so. But when it comes to his family and his loved ones, he doesn't wait a second." So he's immediately down at the docks as soon as Catwoman gets in trouble. Robin comes to, and Catwoman's like, "Hey, don't let them know you're awake. And then when I say go, we're going to..." And then immediately she hears a thunk and just like, "Never mind, we're good." So up on top, all these men with guns who are surrounding them start getting peeled off one by one. It's like, nobody got in here without tripping our alarm. And then as we follow one of them up, we see it's Batman, who says, "Talk." And then as he says that, all of the guards just explode. They all self-destruct, to which Catwoman's like, "That doesn't make any sense. They went through all the effort to catch us, and then they explode? What's the deal?" And Batman's like, "There's a missing piece to this puzzle, but we'll figure it out." So then we cut over to Kansas, specifically close to the Kent farm, it looks like, and a giant spaceship, not that giant, medium-sized spaceship, lands right in the middle of the cornfields. And before the smoke can even clear, in comes some helicopters owned by Sloan. And he's like, great. Today I get my own Kryptonian. So we see Superman is up in space. He's looking at a satellite because he's trying, he knows that based off of everything going on, the universe is just getting smaller and smaller, and he's trying to do more planet protecting stuff, but the satellite can only do so much. He knows that somewhere in the vague vicinity of Kansas, a spaceship has landed, but he's a pretty good guess as to where it is. So he flies right back down to where he landed, and he sees Terry Sloan there, and he's like, Sloan, what the hell are you doing here? And someone's like, oh, hey, Superman. How'd you know this was here? Unless, of course, you have reason to think it was here. It does seem like quite the attractive spot. And Superman's like, shut up, tell me what you got out of the ship. And so Sloan opens up the door to his helicopter, and inside is a giant brick of kryptonite. So Superman's now down. He's struggling to get up, and Terry's like, oh my god, that's crazy. I didn't even, you were brought down by a rock. That's insane. Who would have thought? Maybe I'll help you move a little bit further away. And so he picks up Superman and starts dragging him a bit. And then all of a sudden, Boom Tube opens up, and it's the same New Gods lady from Apocalypse who's been constantly showing up, just being like, hey, you're immortal. That guy's going to be a god, so get your filthy hands off him. And now that he's weakened, perhaps he'll listen to me, or he will be too weak to resist this. And she just zaps him with a space wand or whatever. And she's like, all right, come on with me to Apocalypse. And he's like, no. And she's like, all right, well, come on anyway. And that's when Batman swoops in saying, you heard the man. We need him here. So Batman starts fighting against this New God woman. He takes an exploding pellet or something and shoves it into the end of her space wand, to which it explodes. And he's like, your little toy is not shockproof. So she's knocked out because of the explosion. Batman then walks over to Terry Sloan, just being like, hey, Terry, I see your company's footprints all over this device. And if someone in your organization turns up as being responsible for this, or God forbid you yourself are, I swear to God, I will bring the hammer down on you. And Terry tries to talk. Batman's like, no talking for the world's smartest man. So the New God lady gets up and just be like, you stupid idiots, I'm not giving you any more chances, and your life will be forfeit along with the rest of this world. So she kicks away Batman, picks up Superman by the collar, and is ready to take him through the boom tube. But Batman swoops in at the last second, grabs him, and New God Lady's just like, you dare? And he's like, yeah, of course I do. Go back to hell. Again. And he throws an exploding little bat pellet that knocks her through the boom tube and closes it up. So at that point, Batman pulls out some smelling salts, tries to wake him up, and Superman's like, oh, Jesus Christ, what was all that? And just like, oh, it's no big deal. She just went back to your nightmares. And Terry Sloan also flies away, and Batman's like, yeah, we need to keep an eye on Sloan. He's not so cool. And Superman says, he took out that weird meteor, and I don't know what it was, but I don't like the fact Sloan's got it. And Batman's like, oh, he'll have his day. One day he'll run out of bribing space, and we'll get him. And so we then see that, Batman, according to Lois Lane, he should have gone after him sooner, because we see Terry did manage to abscond with the spaceship. Inside the spaceship was a Kryptonian, and it turns out it was Val-Zod. So, yeah, we got the explanation as to how Val-Zod got here, and all locked up and whatnot. He was put there by Terry Sloan and fed lies about how the outside world sucks. So, yeah, I don't dislike the concept. I don't dislike the idea of, Terry Sloan's responsible for Val-Zod. And just giving that little bit of backdrop of, okay, that makes sense here. I don't get the New God bit. It's been going on for 4 or 5 issues now? Where just every once in a while this New God lady will just pop up and say hey, come with me, and just repeatedly does not. And I shouldn't, but I'm looking ahead into the next issue. Wouldn't you know it, she still keeps coming up next issue. Forgive my language, but shit or get off the pot, lady. It's just do it. Do what you're gonna do. I don't know. I'm at this point, I feel that this arc is probably going to continue up until either next issue or, of course, the last issue after that. But I feel like the last issue is going to be reserved for some look back on what World's Finest has been all these years. Yeah, I'm just not a fan of the arc, I guess, is the long and short of it. I think that it is drawn out to the point of, okay, I get it. And then add on top of that the fact that this is the other Earth 2 book that has just taken a backseat of what should be its own story to because of the weekly book that's coming out. It's just kind of disappointing in that way. So all in all, it's an okay issue for what it is. I just don't like what it is. So I'm going to say 6.5 and call it a day. New Suicide Squad number 6, written by Sean Ryan, art by Tom Derenick. So last issue we had the squad busting into a Chinese facility that is apparently making knockoff superheroes, or like very low quality ones, and Harley woke them all up and they start to attack. We open here at the Pentagon, where Vic Sage is talking to the director or the secretary or whatever, and is saying, hey, I want to transfer. I can't work with Amanda Waller. She's crazy. I hate her. And he's like, well, we just put you in charge of that task force, so you're going to need to stay there for a while, or else we'll look incompetent. And he's like, no, I can't work with her. And he's like, well, figure it out. So we then cut back over to China as the squad is being attacked. And immediately, Black Manta's throwing together a plan, being like, okay, look, you must have hit some sort of failsafe system. All we need to do is get the bombs placed, set them off, and then we can bounce. Flash, go around, put them out, and we will take care of the rest of the group. So he grabs the bombs, Daniel West does, as everyone starts attacking the group. And Flash is like, okay, I'll move as fast as I can, man, but like, my powers aren't what they used to be. So as they start cutting through the groups and all that, we see that it starts to become overwhelming, or at least they start to get tired out. And so they keep on calling Reverse Flash over the comms, like, hey man, how's it going? He's like, I'm moving, I'm trying. He's like, well, try harder. He's like, So they keep on pestering him over and over again as they keep on getting attacked. And we see Daniel just pushing himself to the absolute limit until mid-stride, his kneecap explodes. And he just drops all the rest of the bombs. And Black Manta's like, son of a bitch. And immediately Waller's just like, hey, what's going on? What's happening? He's just like, well, you gave us a defective Flash, so yeah, we're working on it. So we see Waller back at Belle Reve keeping tabs on the rest of the squad. Her secretary comes in being like, oh, hey, is everything okay? And Waller's like, no, this one was supposed to go better without that other guy around here, but like, of course it didn't. And she's like, well, yeah, do these things ever go according to plan? And Waller's like, are you helping me here? What's going on with this? And she keeps on saying like, hey, nothing's perfect. And Walter's like, well, not with that attitude. And she's like, okay, well, anyway, we were going out to get some lunch. Do you want me to get you some pulled pork sandwiches? And Walter's just like, no, I'll have a salad. And she's like, okay. And then Walter's like, you know what? Actually, give me the pulled pork. And it's just this ever small little hint of, we're about to get the wall back. So we then go to DC, some random bar. Vic Sage is having a drink, and in walks this other guy, and he's like, oh, tough day. And he's like, yeah, how could you tell? He's like, oh, I've seen that face. Let me guess. No, something's going wrong with Task Force X, right? And immediately, Sage is like, I'm sorry, how do you know about classified stuff like that? And he's like, oh, well, my business is part of the place that helped rebuild Belle Reve. I'm very aware of clearance and stuff like that. And he says, look, let me guess, what's wrong? People aren't listening to you. People are making clueless decision after clueless decision. And people are refusing to fix the problems they know exist. And Sage is like, yes, how did you know? And he's like, you have a government job. That kind of goes with the territory. Anyway, if you get tired of that, here's my card if you want to start seeing the real big cheese. And he checks the card, and it's called the Pearl Group. Your White Knights. So maybe Vic Sage will bounce. Who knows? We cut back over to China, and Black Manta is like, all right, Reverse Flash, I'm coming to save you. And they throw a random monster-looking thing over through some glass. It lands on a computer next to this seemingly normal-looking hero, and it says, boot up initiating, 0%. So Reverse Flash is saying, hey, leave me, I'm no use. And Black Manta's like, nope, I can't do that, let's go. So he tells over the comms for Harley and Captain Boomerang, by the way, I don't know if I mentioned Captain Boomerang's there, to start planting bombs. And they're just like, hell, we are completely tied up right now. We can't do anything. And he's like, look, I'll place some of the bombs as well. I just need you guys to help. Like, we plant those, we get out of here. And as they are still struggling to escape, in come the Man-Bats, who also accompanied them along. They start swooping through the crowds, giving Harley and Captain Boomerang just enough time to plant all the bombs. So they get out. All the while, the computer keeps on ticking up, 79%, 91%. And as they get away from the facility in their van, Black Manta activates the bombs just as it hits 100% initiated. Double page spread, the whole place explodes. And in the wreckage stands this guy, this dude who is being made. He's got a big old gold star on his chest. He looks around at all the charred bodies of the failed other heroes, and as he uses his supervision to look down the road, he sees the van leaving the scene of the crime, and so he yells out in anger and charges after them. So, who's this guy? Some sort of Chinese superhero. I'm sure we'll get an explanation later on. It's all right. It's an all right issue. I like it more for what it's promising will come than I like the actual issue itself. Like, the fact that we might be getting Amanda Waller being the Wall again, I like that idea. Whatever's going on with Vic Sage, him going into private company, like, that seems like it'll be interesting. I like that Reverse Flash kind of just sucks. Like, clearly he would be overpowered for the team in his normal stuff. I like the fact that for some reason he's, like, really running below expectations here. It's all interesting things that seem like they're coming down the road. It's just that this issue is kind of just set up for that. It's not actually doing the things yet. So all in all, I'd say this one is probably a flat 7. I'd say so. It's a fast read. It's not anything too complicated going on, and it's setting up more interest in the future. I think that's worth a 7. So, yeah. Constantine number 21, written by Ray Fawkes, art by Jeremy Haun. So last issue, Constantine grabbed his whole Earth 2 family, said, hey, we can get out of here, but don't trust any magic people. And then as soon as I went to cast a spell, Dr. Fate showed up. We then open back up at that exact moment, and this entire issue is predicated on this narration of multi-stage rockets. Constantine says how as a kid, he was always so impressed with rockets and rocket ships and stuff like that. He learned everything about them, and his dad always said, you could become an astronaut. And so everything here is staged around the idea of the stages of rockets. So the first stage is just getting up into the air, and then it drops off, falls away, and then what's left is the second stage, which then pushes you more distance out, gets you the rest of the way. So we open up with this, with Dr. Fate coming in being like, who summoned Dr. Fate? I come to lend you aid in this time of need. And Constantine just kind of looks at everyone else being like, oh, what a coincidence that this conjurer of God shows up right now. Hey, let's take a look at the world outside, see if it's any better. And London's just like giant lightning bolts striking. It's just like, nope, not any better. Hey, man, maybe you should go out and help them. And I think it's Chaz is like, hey, this guy's a wonder. Like, he's one of our superheroes. He can help us. To which point the other Constantine's like, no, wait a minute. He warned us about other magic users. Maybe we should trust this John. And at that point, the Helmet of Fate seemingly takes over. He's no longer Dr. Fate. It's the helmet talking. And he turns to Constantine and is just like, Roll Walker, if you're going to get out of this planet, so be it. But, like, you better do it now because they are coming. And we see this giant horde of parademons flying over the city skyline. And ultimately, bombing noises start, everything starts exploding, and everyone else is freaking out, just like, hey, John, maybe we should go. And Dr. Fate's like, open the path now, let's go, let's bail. And John turns to Constantine and is like, dude, what are we waiting for? What's happening? And Constantine's like, well, in a moment, everything needs to be just right. This is very dangerous, gotta put everything in all the proper stages. But then his narration's just like, I can't do it while both me and the other Constantine are still alive. Our soul is split, it is too much, and there's only one way out of this that I can see, and that's either he dies or I do. And I genuinely don't know which one is going to be the way that goes by now. So Constantine makes up some stuff about how he lays down a shield, some warding stuff that the parademons won't notice, and Fate's just like, nah, man, Darkseid sees you, Darkseid's going to get to you. It doesn't matter what kind of magic you lay down. They are only going to stop if you are dead, they find you, or if we leave this realm. And Constantine's like, no, it won't stop even then. That's the whole thing. But Fate's just like, Constantine, why are you not doing this? Why are you activate the sigil? Like, there are ways to do this. I can give you power if that's the problem. And Constantine just doesn't respond. He's just smoking a cigarette. So John's just like, do it, man, get us out of here. And that's where Fate's like, oh, okay, I get it. There's two of you. Yeah, all right, if that's the problem, take my helmet, put it on. I will have the power that you need to merge your souls together. And that's where Constantine's like, there it is. I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. You want us to cast the spell so you can also hitch a ride out of this earth before it starts blowing up. I get ya. At that point, the parademons come in through. Fate seals up the hole, blocks it with his own spell, just being like, that gives you like 10 seconds. You got to do what you're going to do now. And then we get more of like that rocket metaphor where he's like, right now we're lifting off, we can explode in the air, or I can drop the first stage. Like, that's where we're at right now. The monsters come in, the two Constantines are back to back, and Constantine's like, John, I need you right here to make this work. And he's like, cool, just tell me what to do. Because the other John, he doesn't get it yet. He has no idea what's coming. So everyone else in the group starts fighting against the parademons, and Constantine's just watching, and he's just miserable. He's like, I can't decide. I can't do this. I'm about to watch my dad die again. I'm about to watch my mom be killed. I'm about to watch Chaz, everyone else. They're all going to die right now just because I can't make this decision right now. And we see, this is actually the part where he comes to terms with like Fate saying, yeah, I have the power. I can do this. I only have to die. I just really don't want to. Like, that's it. But I'm like freezing up because I know this other version's so much better than me. But like, I just can't actually take the step to kill myself to make this work. And as everyone else around them is dying, they realize they're not being attacked by any of the parademons. And that's where Constantine's like, wait a minute. He's shielding us specifically. Since the spell is going to go off, but I'm the one who has to cast it. He's making sure no harm comes to me. And so he turns to Fate and he's like, dude, save people with this. You could do some actual good here. And Fate's like, city is doomed. This world is doomed. Everything sucks. I want out of here too, okay? I'm only delaying it. Your people are dying because you're not making a decision. You gotta wake up, man. And we see John turns to Constantine and is like, hey, what's going on? What do we need to do now? And as he looks over, he sees Gaz, who I think is his wife, I could be wrong, is hit by one of the parademons. She goes down, and he's like, oh God, no, and he starts running after her. But Constantine grabs his hand, which has a knife in it, and says, hey, listen, you're the one that's disrupting the magic. I've tried to figure out a way around it, but I don't have another way. They're dying because of you. And John just starts crying. Constantine turns the knife towards John's stomach, and he plunges it into his own chest. His other own chest, Earth 2 version's chest. So he's crying as he's bleeding out on the ground. We see that because of the sacrifice that went on there, because of the death, the spell has grown even more powerful than it needed to be to happen. So John adds in a little extra twist to it as all of the group that is still there teleports out except for Dr. Fate. And Dr. Fate's like, wait a minute, son of a... God, I helped you. You could have taken me out of here. Don't leave me here. And so he's now pissed off at Constantine. We see, as far as I'm aware, Constantine did teleport them to Earth 0. As far as I'm aware. They don't actually say it, but they say, yeah. So everyone's upset that John is dead, that Constantine is the one who straight up murdered him. They all saw it happen, and everyone's chewing him out, just being like, oh, you're a murderer. I swear to God, I'll make you pay. Like, and he's like, what do you mean, make me pay? I just paid. Like, that was it. I told you guys magic has a cost. That's always what this is. We're free to go. We can finish this spell and turn. Okay, so I guess they were on Earth 0. They're just somewhere else on Earth 2. They teleported outwards. And it's like, yeah, I can finish the spell now because he's gone. He's no longer necessary. I can get us out of here now. And immediately, I think it's Gaz is just like, I loved him. What, did you think you were just going to step into his life? I would rather kill you. I'd rather die 1,000 times over than have to spend 1 second with you in his place. So she starts choking him out. And as he's like, vision starts fading over to black, he's like, that was the first stage. Now comes the second. there will be more. And yeah, everything just kind of fades to black as some other spell starts activating, probably the one to take him back to Earth Zero. So it's a good issue. I don't want to like bury the lead on that. It is a good issue. But a lot of the middle feels like padding, if that makes sense. Because it literally is defined by Constantine standing there and doing nothing. And while I think that the narration does an okay job of showing how frozen he is with the inability to come to a decision of should he die or should the other John, I think more could have been done. Because ultimately there is a lot of action going on. It just didn't feel like it was, I don't know, it felt like there was always still things going on. You know, it didn't feel like he was really stuck in this one moment, just unable to choose. It felt like he was still throwing out the quips, still trying to delay as much as he could. Maybe that's how it was supposed to be read, but I'm choosing to read this as he genuinely was trying to find another way out of this. Or if he knew there wasn't another way, he was like looking for any reason. He's trying to build up the courage to kill himself rather than having to kill the other John, instead of just taking what is actually, in this strange little turn of events, the coward's way out. So yeah, it's good. It just, you know, pacing wise, it's a little bit weird there. I'm going to say it's a solid 7 regardless. It's a very good issue. This whole arc here has been very good of him on Earth 2. I highly recommend it if you haven't checked it out. Yeah, solid issue. Klarion number 4, written by Nocenti, art by Fabrizio, Fiorentino, and Szymon Kudranski. So, last issue, man, I don't even know. There was a whole thing with them fighting against the dude who made the buddy bots, and then cops showed up, but it's actually like magic cops, and then Klarion called for the devil to give him a ride, and the devil showed up. So this issue opens up with Zell being handcuffed by the cops as the devil's saying, hey, and it's actually Beelzebub, not the devil itself, because there's a distinction, saying like, hey man, hop in the car. And Clarion's like, I don't know what to do. And Zell's like, what, you would just leave me here? And he's like, maybe. So Beelzebub says, hey, take the wheel, I got your back, as Klarion jumps in the car. Zell gets handcuffed as we see them try to focus on Klarion as he's peeling out. They're firing off shots into this magical black spiral portal thing. The buddy bot for Zell undoes the handcuffs as Beelzebub's giving cover fire down the street. And as Zell falls into the portal with the bot as well, we see that the 2 magic cops manage to get a hold of one of the tiny little computerized spider bots and say, well, we'll have to figure out what this creepy insect tech is instead. So Clarion's peeling out with the devil inside of the big portal thing, and it turns out that this is the Klarion zone. This is an internal pocket dimension that like everybody has, but everyone's is different, and this is his. And Clarion's like, wait a minute, I can feel my familiar Tickle here, but Tickle's dead. And Beelzebub's like, the familiars, they stick around no matter what. It's like a bad itch. And he's like, not my Tickle. Tickle's great. So they walk through this weird forest thing, and Beelzebub's basically trying to convince Klarion, saying like, hey, that life that you got going on at the Moody Museum or whatever it's called, screw that place. It sucks. You need to get like to a much harder place. That place will soften you up. You need something that's going to toughen you up instead. And Clarion's like, you know, I may be a novice in the dark arts, but I can see that you're just trying to undermine me. And he's like, oh, hey, well, you know, you did call for the devil, you know? And so they arrive at a bar inside this pocket dimension, and the devil says that there's someone inside waiting for Klarion. And he's like, what? How could someone be in here? And he says, this kind of guy's inside everyone's pocket dimension. So they go in, and it turns out this guy's name is Swag, and he deals in future tech. He uses magic to get tech from the future and bring it to the current day. 'Cause why not? So at that point, he's like, yeah, your buddy Cole, the bad guy from before, he's already got it. That's the kind of dog you need in this fight. So they go settle up next to this guy who passes a drink over to Klarion, and he's like, what do you got? I'll bring you everything you need, whatever you need. And he passes over the drink, and Clarion's like, I don't drink. He's like, well, I don't trust a man who doesn't drink. I mean, I might be able to make the exception because you're a kid, but regardless. So Klarion downs the drink, but it's laced with something, and both Beelzebub and Swag start laughing as Klarion starts feeling it. And at that exact moment, Zell walks in with the buddy bot and is like, hey, Klarion, what, you think you're drinking with the big boys now? So we then cut back over to New York, where Noah and Piper, I'm doing my best to remember the names here, the leaders of the Moody Museum, are going around town and they're just investigating this whole buddy bot thing. And they check out how, like, an old guy, this elderly man, has a buddy bot who's just thrilled to hear the same stories over and over and over again. And it was like, well, that doesn't seem so bad. It gives them something to do, like, whatever. And Piper's like, yeah, it could just be a dog as well. It doesn't need to be, this is creepy, this is weird. And we cut to this one guy who is saying how he needs a drink, but his buddy bot, which is a pink elephant, is withholding the drinks from him because that was the initial, like, condition upon purchase, was he told the buddy bot, hey, keep me sober no matter what. But now, you know, he's an alcoholic. He's dying for a drink. And the pink elephant's pouring all the booze down the drain. And he's like, oh, you were a stupid purchase. I wish I never got you. What have I done? A man has a right to drink himself to death. So we go back to the Moody Museum as Noah and Piper are just chilling out, waiting to see where Klarion and Zell are. When all of a sudden, one of the agents, Agent Moody, who is Noah's daughter, apparently, shows up and says, hey, your children, quote unquote, are in trouble. And Piper goes to slam the door on her, but she gets her foot in the door, shows the magical portal, and turns out that this portal is because of Noah. This is something that he did, and so he's like, yeah, that's my daughter, let her in, we got to take care of this, something I probably did. So they get it all out, and they manage to open up the portal because her gun was calibrated to it. So then they use their magic stuff to go in through it and get Klarion and Zell out of there, while the daughter stays on the other side and keeps it open, just looking over the spider bot. Meanwhile, somewhere else in the building, whatever his name is, Rasp, who's got the robot girlfriend now. Robot girlfriend's like, hey, you should go get more metal. It'll feel amazing. And Rasp's like, oh, yeah, we can do that. So they just sneak by the daughter as she's holding open the portal, and they go off to do their thing. And then we cut over to the Necropolitan Club, where Cole and Necrot are just playing video games. And they're like, should we do something? And he's like, nah, don't worry about it. They'll do their... Robots are working. They'll do their thing. So back in Clarion's pocket dimension, Beelzebub and Swag say they'll divide and conquer. Beelzebub goes after Zell and just like, oh, what'd you do to Klarion, Zell? He's nowhere near as cool as he was before. You ruined him. And you put some sort of spell on him. And Zell's like, what? Nothing. We took them in and helped him. We didn't do anything to him. So they start fighting against each other. Meanwhile, Swag's trying to seduce Klarion with the tech, just being like, hey, you know those weird little bug bots that Cole's got? I got like 9th generation bug bots. They're so much even cooler and better. If you want to get the upper hand, you got to take some of these. And Clarion's like, what's it going to cost me? He's like, oh, well, first hit's on me. So as he passes over the tech, in come Piper and Noah. They start fighting against Beelzebub as well, and saying like, hey, we gave Klarion a good home. And Beelzebub's like, it's softening him up. He should be a badass. And so they just kind of argue over that for a little bit. Piper tells Zell to go cheer up Klarion, despite the fact that she's mad at him. And so she goes over and just like, you dumped me with the cops. What the hell, man? And he's like, oh, to protect you. I had no idea what was going on in this portal. So he's like, trust me, we gotta smash all these things, starting with your buddy bot. And she's like, what? No, I programmed my buddy bot to be cool. Like, it's not an evil parasite. It's okay. And he's like, all of them are evil parasites. Well, how are you not seeing that? So at that point, Piper goes over and talks to Swag, and is like, hey, they're gonna be okay. I'm gonna make sure that they have a good, relationship or whatever. And Swag is like, nah, I put the seed of doubt into him. That's the only thing I did. And that's enough to destroy any love. And she's just like, well, I hope you're wrong. And he's like, well, I hope you're wrong. So We then go through Clarion's mind where he goes through all these alternate endings of like the next path he takes. Step 1, destroy the bot. That doesn't end too well because Zell gets pissed. Forget that. Alternate ending 2, spare the bot, but it goes on a rampage. That one doesn't work. Alternate ending 3, get drunk and just take over this bar. Just hang out here in the head. That sounds good. But then alternate ending 4, eat one of the swag bots and get super powerful. So he seemingly does that, or at least he's prepping to do that. We then see that some crazy snake being has been summoned alongside Tickle. I don't know by who and I don't know where, but it's there on the page. And then we see Klarion, who's become like truly demonic. He's got big horns and stuff like that that's been growing this whole time. Said, Piper told you my pocket reflection, or my pocket dimension is a reflection of me. She told you to calm me down, but all you did was rile me up. So now you've awoken the beast. And Zell's like, please don't do whatever you're planning on doing. Look, at the very least, I feel like I understood most of this issue, which is much more than I could say to the previous 3. That being said, I still have no goddamn idea what it's doing. I've been saying the same thing for 3 issues now. I don't understand what the point of the story is. It seems like they're going a thing of like nature versus nurture, but like that's not been a focus. Like, you haven't set that up at all. I like, just writing wise, this is not even a thing of like, it hasn't been that much of a, no, there's nothing. There's nothing to say that this has been a storyline up until this point. It is poor writing. Every issue exists independently of all other issues going on, with only the barest of threads keeping it all together. It's not a story. You know what it is? It's like, there are some comic strips, like in newspapers, that follow an overarching arc, and they are like impossible to break into because you never know what's going on in them. And then there's Garfield. This is Garfield. This is like, you never have to know a goddamn thing coming in before it, and you never need to go a goddamn thing after it. They exist completely on their own. It's just nowhere near as good as Garfield, and I know that's saying a lot considering Garfield is pretty much the opposite of art. So, all that said and done, this is probably, on any other week, I probably would still give it like a 6 for the art. I like Szymon Kudranski. He does great art. But like, I've given other books 6s this week, and this one is the one that still pisses me off the most. So I think this one's got to come down to like, honestly, like a 4.5. I'm so fed up with this book. I've still got 2 more issues. It's just a mess. Batman Eternal number 41, written by Snyder, Tynion, Fawkes, Higgins, and Seeley, art by Joe Quinones. So, we finally get back to what the hell did that nanobot swarm affecting kids do? We open up with a truck driver who's just randomly cruising down the street. All of a sudden, bunch of kids in front of the truck. He slams on the brakes, gets out, yells at the kids, and they say, like, oh, proximity sensors activated. Go get the thing. And so these crazy nanobot tentacles extend from their mouths. They just slam the guy into the pavement with enough force to make a hole, and they start raiding the truck. And we see that this truck has arrived at a warehouse and is being tracked by Red Robin and Harper Row. And Red Robin's like, oh, that's the 3rd one in an hour. How'd you find this place? And Harper's like, well, my brother disappeared this morning, and so I stopped just waiting around for something to happen and started going in depth. So I blah, blah, blah. I hacked everybody's Wi-Fi in order to sense nanobots talking to each other. And I tracked it all to here. And you got to understand, we were tracking maybe like 20-something kids, a couple dozen. There's so much more than that in this warehouse. It's a big deal. Whoever's controlling these kids, they're in there and they're building something. So we go inside and we see, yes, they are building something. And there's a hooded figure. It's someone in shadow with a big old toothy smile who's doing all this stuff. And we then cut over to Stephanie, who's like, I am so tired. I could use a shower. I could use my bed. Anything at all. These people are just keep on trying to kill me. And then all of a sudden, she turns to the side, throws out some little, I forget what they're called, but the little balls on a string to wrap up the guy's feet. And we see this guy comes out, and I don't recognize him. He doesn't say his name. And she's like, you're like the 6th guy to come after me. And I've taken out all the other ones. I've got skill. I'm already doing it. You're not going to be able to cash in the bounty on me. And he's like, I've already been paid. And I've been paid in order to protect you. And as that takes Stephanie off guard of like, what? He lands a solid punch to her face, and she's out for the count. So we then cut over to Red Robin, Red Hood, and Batgirl all up on the roof. And Red Hood's like, so you want me to shoot a bunch of kids? And Red Robin's like, no, that's not what I said. How did you get that from what I said? And he's like, that's how it sounded. So Harper clarifies, yeah, look, the kids are being controlled by a nanobot army thing. Like, that's a whole thing. We just need to clear the way so that we can get in and take them out. And Batgirl's like, I'm sorry, when you say we, who the hell are you? And she asks why Batman isn't here. And Red Robin's like, he's off dealing with Riddler. I trust you guys. I need you to help me out. And I trust Harper as well. Can you guys help me out? And Red Hood's like, yeah, I'll grab the rubber bullets, whatever. So Harper's saying, like, all right, I'm thinking we all go in. We can sneak in the back. We can access. And Red Robin's like, stop. You know what I'm going to say, Harper. And she's like, don't put me on the bench, coach. My brother's in there. Come on, I got to go in. And he's like, look, I know this is what you want, but once you put on that mask, you might not be able to come back. I thought that I put this on because I had no other choice back when I first started, but like, you had that choice. I really want you to consider that and don't go in unless you absolutely need to. And right now, you don't need to because I need somebody who's going to tell me if more people are coming in. You need to be on the outside, okay? So the rest of the group all launches in. Batgirl and Red Robin going through the window for surprise. The kids immediately turn. They're ready to attack. And then the doors blow open with Red Hood ready to take them all down. So they immediately start fighting. There's a single panel in this issue, just for fans of the show Gravity Falls, where it's definitely the two main kids from Gravity Falls. Just, I don't know why, but they're here. And Red Hood's shooting them. And we see Red Robin finally goes after the person who is in charge of all this. Turns out it's Mad Hatter. And he's like, yes, of course, it's me. I'm the one who is doing all this. I'm just the Hatter to give them what they need. And Red Robin's like, oh, we already traced the tech back to you for that much earlier storyline, the guy who made Jim Gordon see stuff, but we thought he stole it from you. And he's like, no, I just cashed it out, you know? He only saw money in my work. I saw so much more. I could make all of the children of Gotham, all the outcasts, one big happy family. And as Harper is keeping an eye on like the comms and stuff like that, she's like, oh no, I know what he's doing. Get out of there. But the transmission does not go through. It gets all broken up. So a bunch of kids come out and just like, oh, look, I'm going to start a new Gotham where it's perfect and everyone loves me. And Red Robin's like, if you think you're going to infect this whole city, you got another thing coming. He's like, oh, you think I haven't already done that? And he presses a button, sending out a high-frequency thing from the nearby tower. The tower is what they were building. And everyone's like, what the hell's going on? And then Red Hood grabs his head, like something's inside of his helmet, and all of a sudden he snaps up and he says, subject acclimated, eliminate all hostiles. And Mad Hatter's like, the swarm's completely infesting this place. You were exposed the second you walked in here. So Batgirl grabs a hold of Red Robin and says, you got to get out of here. Take it, care of stuff. Like, I'll fight off whoever I can. And she goes to throw a punch at Red Hood. And it's like, I definitely don't enjoy this, Jason. Wham, with a smile. And all of a sudden, she falls prey to it as well. Red Robin starts flying out and calling to Harper saying like, hey, if you can hear me, he's broadcasting the programming. Whatever you do, don't. And then he gets taken over by it as well. So we cut over to Harper's home, and she's leaving a video message for Cullen saying like, hey, look, it may be too late now. I'm sorry I was so angry all the time. I wasn't smart enough to get us out of this. I wish that everything had gone differently. I wish we could have just stayed like young, innocent children, but that's not where we're at now. Somehow all this is my fault, but believe me when I say I never really had a choice. And we see her getting suited up as she finally takes on the mantle, I think, of Blue Jay? Might be Bluebird, but I'm going to go with Blue Jay. So, yeah, took long enough. I like it. I do like the issue overall. I think the art style really works for this particular issue. There's some good humor to it as well. I think my biggest thing is the fact that this nanobot thing has been set up since the very beginning of this series. And the fact that it's something as simple as Mad Hatter, the mind control guy, is doing the mind control thing just kind of seems too easy for me, you know? Like, I wanted it to be a bit more complicated. I could see this being a bit that continues for the next 7 issues before we actually get a reveal. But I feel like they kind of forgot about it. I feel like it's kind of was put on the back burner. Other things took higher precedence, and by the time that they got back to it, they're like, ah, crap, we got to devote the last 10 issues to Batman's, specifically his side of the story, so we got to wrap this up right now. So a little bit disappointing there, but ultimately it's still an okay issue. I'd say it probably gets a flat 7 for me. It's more of what could have been than what was actually presented. So take it or leave it. Future's End number 37, written by Azzarello, Lemire, Jurgens, and Giffen, art by Aaron Lopresti. So this issue picks up immediately after the last one, where Amethyst stabbed a sword through Constantine in the House of Mystery, and it's immediately revealed that, actually, I'm just a psychic projection. This is astral stuff. I'm not actually here. Obviously, I knew you'd be pissed off with me, Amethyst, so I wasn't actually going to show up. Also, I'm doing much more important stuff over in a Superman plot, so I can't actually really be here right now. But she's like, look, what's more important than helping Frankenstein dying? It's like, I told you, the Superman plot. That's why I'm off doing that. However, I came here in order to try to help. So how about you let bygones be bygones and I can do my thing? And she's like, bygones be bygones. Let me remind everyone that as Darkseid's forces were attacking Earth, they invaded the other realms as well, including Gemworld. And when they invaded Gemworld, all of the houses of the gems started falling, so I called in for Justice League Dark for reinforcements, but it still wasn't enough. Gemworld was on the brink of falling, and then Constantine, you said, I can help stop all of them. And you cast this big magic spell, and you're right. You did stop the parademons by trapping them all in Gemworld so that my people would all die and you and the rest of Earth would be safe. And Constantine's like, yeah, you're welcome. Because if they escaped Gemworld with all of that magical power, all the rest of the world would be doomed. Billions of people just done. So yeah, anyway, that's said and done with. Can I please help Frankenstein now? And Frankenstein just sits up and just like, hey man, I am dying, but I still don't trust you. So yeah, I just piss off. And Constantine's like, oh, it's good to see you too, man. So Amethyst helps Frankenstein up to his feet. And Constantine's like, look, if you don't want my help, so be it, but at least let me give you a tip. You got to go back to Castle Frankenstein. That's the only way it's going to work. So we go up to the Watchtower, which is apparently not called the Watchtower. It's called Justice League Defense Station Omega. It's the Watchtower. And Firestorm was up there, and apparently they've used the technology, the teleporter tech, they've rewired it to Dr. Yamazaki's specs or whatever, and they're going to try to use that to finally separate out the Firestorm protocol. And as they are about to do so, we see on the television is Dr. Yamazaki now as Dr. Polaris, and he's lifting up buses off the street saying, like, I want Firestorm. I have to create a situation here just to be able to get Firestorm to show up. And so he's tossing around buses and be like, you all should hate Firestorm as well. You could have had teleporter tech, but the Justice League betrayed you. And he lets the bus fall out of the air, and at the last second, in comes Superman, aka Shazam, and comes in just being like, oh, what? We hurt your feelings so much that you're willing to kill? And he's like, I would have caught it, but I just need you guys to show up. So, yeah. And Superman gets everyone off the bus, and it's like, stay away from metal. And it's like, this is Metropolis, man. How the hell are we supposed to do that? So Polaris launches a fire hydrant at Superman, takes him out with the water pressure, being like, I offered you the world transporter technology, but your lackey Firestorm kept it from all of us. And in comes Stormguard to help with the fight. And Polaris is like, oh, what? Didn't want people knowing about your life-saving technology? And he's like, I'm just trying to save him from you, you maniac. So they start throwing blows at each other. Firestorm, Madison specifically, is like, wait a minute, did you really sabotage this teleporter tech? Why would you do that? And he's like, I didn't. He only thinks I did. But also, yeah, the Justice League did not think that it was a good idea for him to make teleporter tech. Like, they thought that it would have more downsides than good stuff. And she's like, well, who are you to make that judgment? And immediately the machine starts up. They start separating out. But Madison's still like, he might be a nut job, but I think he might be right. That technology could have saved lives. And they start partying, but then all of a sudden, something goes wrong. They merge back together, and Madison's now unconscious. So, last issue, 50 Sue brought the DNA vault from Cadmus Island on top of a skyscraper and just teleported it there. This issue shows that the skyscraper is not structurally sound enough to hold that, and the vault just crashes through 50 floors of this building until it finally hits the street below in a giant explosion. And what seems to be little vials of radioactive stuff just goes flying everywhere. And 50 Sue's like, that was awesome. And immediately King Faraday is turned into Sergeant Wild, like, fix this, control this, contain this, do anything. And they're just like, how are we supposed to contain this? It's in the middle of a city. It's a giant vault. She's the only one who could move it. She's the only one. She's like, well, have her teleport it somewhere else, some secure site. It's like, we never brought her to any secure sites. So as they're saying all this, 52's like, oh, hey, wait, was that all that DNA stuff you used to make me? And as she's coming across that, we see that one of Voodoo's girls, one of the people in the gang, comes out and touches 50 Sue on the shoulder and says, goodbye, brat. And 50 Sue turns around and with red eyes, she's being like, what do you call me? And she's like, whoa, that's impossible. Nothing has ever survived being touched by me. And then 50 Sue just, her eyes roll back. She collapsed to the ground. She's dead. And we see Lana's completely broken up about this. Like, oh God, she's just a child. And we see, what was her name? Mercy, I think it's her name, is like, hey, I'll take my, job's done, I'll take my cash now, or, no electronic transfer allowed. And Cole turns over to Voodoo being like, did you know about this? And it's like, look, we had a takedown order, yes, but I didn't expect her to do it right then and there. That was ballsy of her. And Cole's like, okay, so where's Justin? It's like, what, you think we killed Justin too? And she's like, I don't see him around. And they stare off for a second, and Voodoo's like, he's downstairs. He's playing with the hot chicks. I don't know why they like him so much. Something about him being a nerd. And as she looks back, Cole, 50 Sue, and Lana are all gone. They have teleported out. And as they look down to the ground, the DNA vault is gone as well. And up comes Justin, and he's like, oh, hey, sorry, I was taking some painkillers. I guess I must have dozed off. What did I miss? And King Faraday just punches him in the nose and walks away. So we then cut over to Mr. Terrific. Remember, they said they were going to launch the U-Spheres one day early in New York. So apparently people are flying in from all around the globe. People are taking off of work, and whole companies have been upset by this thing. Lines are already forming 3 weeks out. And Mr. Terrific's like, awesome. This is the best. And Brother Eye is talking to him like, you look happy. He's like, how do you know what I look like? He's like, I am looking at you now. You look happy. So Superman is talking to Constantine after Constantine said that Brainiac probably is going to show up in Smallville. And he's like, no, Smallville is a good place and it doesn't have bad things show up. That's not how it works. And he's like, fine, maybe he'll show up elsewhere, but this is a fully potential candidate place for him to show up. And Superman just flicks out the cigarette from his mouth saying, I'm tired of this game, Constantine. He's like, no, Superman. It's not a game. In games, there are winners and losers. This is life. Everyone loses. Speaking of which, Tim Drake comes back to New York City, and as he gets out of his cab back to the Wounded Duck, he sees that because of the whole fight with Batman and Joker future version, whatever, there's a big hole in the side of his bar, and he's just pissed off. He just starts yelling at the bar, yelling at the world. He's just like, to hell with you, all of this, I'm fed up, I'm sick with it. Meanwhile, on top of his bar, still naked after just finished banging, is Terry and Plastique, and they're about to start going at it again, and they hear Tim yelling from down on the street, and just like, oh, we should probably take care of this. So Terry gets on the bat suit, and he's like, Tim Drake, and he's like, oh, you're the Tonga Death Touch guy, right? And he's like, yeah, hey, I'm sorry about that. And Tim looks up the hole in the wall, and he's like, that was you? He's like, yeah, sorry. And then Tim just punches him in the face, and he's like, all right, well, this is probably a bad time to ask this, but... And then all of a sudden, Batman, who is still watching like a pervert from on top of another building, sees coming down across the street is the cyborg mashup Joker Batman from the future, who starts firing like crazy towards Tim Drake and Terry. And that's the issue. All right. I said this last issue, I am happy with the direction that the 50 Suit plot is taking. It feels like it's finally all coalesced and we have an actual direction for that. I'm good with it. Mr. Terrific plot, the U-Sphere's coming online. I feel like that's supposed to be our countdown timer. Like once the U-Spheres are active, that's the end of the world. That is the no coming back level of this has to happen now. But they haven't really established that, so I feel like that could use just a little bit more of an oomph on that. Firestorm plot, Dr. Polaris and all that, they got to do something to make it matter more. I really don't care. Same thing with the Frankenstein plot. Don't get me wrong, I'm attached to the characters. I think that it's good to see what like the characters are doing, but it feels so separate from everything else. I need it to be a little bit more tied in here. And then the Superman Constantine plot, that's the one I'm still lost on. Like, clearly they're waiting for Brainiac. I get that much. But, like, how does that go back to that red alien thing before? Like, I don't know. It just seems really different from everything else while seemingly being the most important part of all of this. So, all in all, I'm going to say 6.5. Not the greatest, not the worst, just kind of in the middle. Earth 2 World's End number 15, written by Bennett, Johnson, and Wilson, art by everybody in DC's art department. So, last issue, they set off some nukes on Apocalypse, trying to blow up the planet. This issue picks up with the nukes all going off, and Darkseid just being like, bro, our whole planet's on fire. You're just helping Apocalypse. This is just fuel. Thanks. So, he's talking to his little court of people, specifically to Barda, being like, hey, is Earth prepared? Are we ready to go? And Barda's like, yeah, their human attack has failed. What do you want us to do? And it's like, oh, return to Earth, enter the fire pits, get the horde ready. Let's get Earth ready for consumption. So we see the mother box inside Jimmy Olsen that belonged to Mr. Miracle is like, okay, I got to get back to Mr. Miracle now, Jimmy. You are of the source now. You're not a god. You're not a man. You're something in between. Good luck. And the box leaves his body, like explodes outwards, and goes back up into space. And it's like, oh, we've got nuclear detonations on Apocalypse. Something's going on, but the mother box is going back. Jimmy, did they pull it off? Do you know? And he's like, I don't know. I'm not sure, but I do have one last trick in me. I got some blueprints sent to me from Commander Khan right before he died. It's to a giant ship outside of Earth's orbit in the Lagrange point that can hold thousands. He might have saved the world with that. And we get a glimpse of the ship itself. So seemingly we're going to be building up to that over 9 issues. We then cut over to the mother box as it makes its way into the blackened shield that Mr. Miracle and Fury made in order to shield from the nuclear holocaust. And it opens it up and it's like, oh, we did it. Did we win? And Mr. Miracle's like, well, we didn't kill ourselves, but Apocalypse is still here. So yeah, no, it didn't work. And they're like, okay, well, the mother box can take us back to Earth. So let's go with that. We then cut over to London where Flash and Hawkgirl are looking at the downed Fury of Famine. And she's back to normal. She's not controlled by anything. And it's like, oh, I'm free. I don't remember my name, but I was on War World, and I was chosen, and I became Famine, and we reached survivors of a dead world, of a dying race. Like, that was the whole thing. And Hawkgirl's like, okay, how do we stop you guys? What do we do? What's the plan? And it's like, yes, all your people are gone, but you will see them again soon. And he's just like, okay, but like, seriously, how do we stop your sisters? And it's like, stop them. Yes, they can be stopped, but it will come at a great cost. So then we go over to the Furies, and as the avatars are about to launch in their attack, Jay, who's just crossed the entirety of Europe and Asia, comes over and just like, yo, Alan, we got intel. Each of them is a member of their own different race, their own species, and we got all of their weaknesses. So War is a Tamaranian, absorbs ultraviolet light. So Alan tells the Avatar of the White to thicken the atmosphere around her, don't allow any sunlight in. Pestilence is a Zarnian who can heal against any injury. So the water one is told to fill her lungs with water, not let her breathe, because technically it's not an injury, it's just going to incapacitate. And Death is a Martian, which immediately Solomon Grundy's like, I know this one, it's fire. So each of them do their bits. Solomon Grundy lights a fire with 2 big rocks. The water one fills the lungs, and they all start coming down one by one. But ultimately, Death, the Martian one, gets close enough to the water avatar to be able to grab its tail and throw it down to the earth. Pestilence then spits in the eye of the white one, thus distracting it and like getting it in pain. And it's like, haha, you've done what you could, but we've been with our sisters for eons. You had no chance. And we see that the parliaments, whatever you want to call it, the little gathering of the elemental forces are like, oh, that was it. That was the last of energy we had. We got nothing else. I'm so sorry. And we see Helena, Huntress, come up as the new Fury, just being like, oh, we're coming for you too, Worm, and your parliament as well. And Alan says, we need the Avatar of the Red. It's our only hope. So we get a few pages of Grayson, who's gone down to a train wreck to see if he can find his son. A couple of like random people coming up who, again, this place was attacked by a tidal wave like an hour ago. How the hell are they alive? But regardless, he's calling out for his son, and they're just like, oh, yeah, we know where Johnny is. How about you give us everything you got, and we'll take you to him. And they go to attack him from behind, and he remembers Ted Grant's training. He dodges some swings, starts kicking, using their momentum against him, and he's damn good in a fight. And one of the guys is like, please don't hurt us, we're desperate. And he's like, you don't know desperate. So they're all down. Ted catches up, and he's like, you're not really big on mercy, are you? And he's just like, well, it's better off without him, but I'm not going to kill him. So he finds his son's teddy bear, and he's like, oh, this is his. And Ted's like, oh, well, there's no body. That's a good sign. There's hope there. And he's like, hope? I don't need hope. I just need my boy back. So finally we get our last thing, which is in Desaad's labyrinth, fighting against the Avatar of the Red, who's been held captive here. Clark is held back from the rest of the fight, but he's like, look, I can end this. My blood is poisoned to the clones. I can end all this now. And so he goes, and he's looks up to Lois and Kara, and he's like, goodbye. And he hops into this machine that starts stabbing him with a bunch of needles, pulling his blood from his body, and it overloads, it poisons the Avatar of the Red's sensors. It starts fading away. And Desaad's like pumped about this. He's like, yes, awesome, we killed Superman. And the Lois and Kara go over to Clark, and he's on his dying breath, and he's just like, I had no other choice, but don't worry, this isn't so terrible. Remember, we've died before. And Lois is like, yeah, that's right, we died before, and there was peace and music and the sound of seas, and the faces of all those we lost were with us, and oh god, it was so great. And as he dies, saying like, oh, the sun was shining high and bright, and we were immortal. And we see that all the rest of the group is looking sad as Superman dies. And then the Avatar of the Red, still a giant demon monster behind them, which seems like it should cause some attention, but they don't seem to care. So, yeah, that's the issue. It's fine. It's all right. It's just, look, with like the nukes on Apocalypse going on, and like there's this ship out there, and then there's the whole thing of, oh, we figured out the weakness to the Furies, but oh, when you know what, they overcame us. The pattern to this book seems to be, hey, we figured out something that might actually work. And then immediately pulling the rug. Not even like giving a moment of just like, we did it. We managed to save the day. It's like, no, this didn't work at all. You had one page of being happy, and then it's just gone again. And that seems to be like every issue of this. Even when going back to like Barbara Gordon. Like, oh no, it seems like she's dead, but she's actually alive, but she's actually dead. Like, I don't know. It's just... I get there's like this sense of you want to write for cliffhangers. You want to write to bring people back. But like you're doing a cliffhanger every 3 pages. You're doing a thing where there is no payoff because everything just keeps on going through the finger. Occasionally there needs to be a win. You know, that's what keeps people engaged. But I guess considering the name of the book is World's End, the writers think there can't be a win. You can't have the momentary victory. It always sucks. So, yeah, I don't know. We're more than halfway through this book. It's kind of just worn out its welcome for me. It feels like, okay, if you're going to end the world, just do it already. But I guess we have to wait. So I'm going to give this one a 6. It sucks because I feel like the death of Superman for real this time should hold more weight. But honestly, it felt like he was dead 3 issues ago. It felt like he was dead 30 issues ago. And I know his book didn't exist 30 issues ago, but over in Earth 2, he was dead there as well. So, whatever. Yeah, it's a 6 for me. I just can't really give it anything higher. And that's it. That is all the comics released by DC Comics this January 14th, 2015. That is going to take some getting used to. You know when you have to write the date out and like all of January, you accidentally put the wrong year at the end? I have to do that, but 10 years later, which makes it even more confusing. But yes, 2015. So long ago. Crazy to think about. Anyway, next week we have 13 comics coming out. Frankly, hoping they're better than this week's. However, here's the thing. This is the thing I need to preface just a little bit here. I will let you know if I do this next week, but I'm looking ahead on the schedule. And next week only has 13 comics coming out, but the week after that has 19. 19 is too many, especially because one of those is the Multiversity Guidebook. I don't even know how I'm going to begin talking about that one. That is its own barrel of monkeys, but I may have to push some books from 2 weeks from now into next week. If I decide that that is necessary, I will tell you, but it is a looming possibility. So anyway, as it stands right now, what will be on the episode is Batman and Robin, Batwoman, Red Hood and the Outlaws, Batman/Superman, Supergirl, Green Lantern New Guardians, Justice League, Wonder Woman, Teen Titans, Trinity of Sin, and our 3 weekly titles, Batman Eternal, Future's End, and World's End. So yeah, pretty light week unless I decide to make it harder for myself. But I have to remind myself, making it harder now means making it easier later. So yeah, I thinking about it, I probably will do that. I just need to decide which ones. God, there's so many to choose from. All in all, really don't have much more to say about it. There's this thing in, I don't know if it's all sales, but it is definitely in online marketing, which is the January lull, the January dip, where for some reason in December, it's not even just marketing, it's like everything gets higher views, higher attention is paid to it. And then when January comes around, no one cares. And all I can think is, what the hell is everyone doing? Why is, did they just oh, January, I'm just not going to watch YouTube anymore. No, you're not. You're clearly going to come back. What the hell are you doing? Stop pretending to yourself. It's just weird to me. I don't change any of my habits post-December. I'm the same person. I don't understand the people who do. But maybe I'm the weird one there. Anyway. Outside of that little rant, that's going to do it for me. If you have any comments on anything you'd like to say about this week's comics, next week's comics, any week at all, go ahead and hit me up in the comments below the YouTube version of this video. Or if you are listening to the audio version, we have a numerous cavalcade of social media platforms. We've got a Discord, we've got a subreddit, we've got a Patreon. If you can find me on Blue Sky, I will shout you out on this show. I haven't ever said a thing, so good luck. I am there, though. Beyond that, it's not much else to say. So I hope that you enjoyed this week's episode. Be sure to interact with it positively. Give it all the little stars and thumbs that it deserves. And I hope to see you on next week's episode. And until then, always remember, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.